Okay, here we go yet again. Okay, uh, it's the Midnight Skeptic, and here's my in music. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, now this is show number 71, and including the time that was only radio, and I was doing it down in the KPCA studios. It's been more than 5 years. I can't remember exactly, but I was one of the originals when they first started up the radio station, which is a subsidiary of Petaluma Community Access, and I've enjoyed myself. Believe me, this gets a lot of crap out of my system, a lot of stress that I can just mouth off about, and hopefully it'll be somewhat educational and somewhat stress relieving for my audience out there too. The opinions, of course, that I express on this show and on YouTube are not necessarily the views of Petaluma Community Access or its radio and television stations. The television part of it. We don't broadcast shows per se. I mean, like this isn't on TV through KPCA. It's the part you can see is strictly YouTube, and the television part of it is they televise city council meetings, planning commissions, teen commissions, and all of that stuff. They have to do it by law, so that's why they do that. Okay, if you disagree with anything that I say here, although I can't for the life of me understand why you would, because my opinions are the correct opinions, as I've always said. But anyway, if you disagree with me, then send me hate mails or death threats to the Midnight Skeptic at gmail.com. All lowercase, all one word. I'll get it. If there's any suggestions out there for what I should rant and rave about, then let me know. I'll research things for you. Okay. Shout outs. My international people, 2 from Ireland, 2 from the UK, 2 from Germany, and I got a new one from France. Bonjour. And 1 or 2 from the Czech Republic. I'm not sure exactly. And 2 from Australia, 2 from New Zealand, and the more I listen to and watch Jacinda Ardern, she's over here visiting right now, trying to drum up support for New Zealand and their exports and their tourist industry and all that. She is very impressive, a very impressive lady. We need politicians like her more in this country. All right. Okay, shout outs. And the Sonora gang, I missed you last week. I just forgot to mention all the Sonora people that's where I went to high school way back when. Okay, Bob and Sandy Fisher, Brad and Martha Fisher. Martha, take care of yourself. I'm glad to hear that you're not working double shifts anymore, but wear your PPE. The COVID has not gone away. Darrell Larson, Leonidas Maciel, Judy May, and Kathy Francis, and then an ex-Sonoraite down in Mexico City now, Rosie Lopez Negrete. Okay, out on Long Island, Geraldine Goldfinger, Raleigh Durham, head of doctor, and his wife Vicky, and down in Florida in the Edgewater area, Amelia Beamer, and across the state in the Sarasota area, Nelson and Alice Lydell, Nelson and ex Sonora. In my opinion, the smartest guy to have ever come out of Sonora High. Arkansas, Shannon Reed, down to Arizona, my brother Brandon and his wife Mina, and their daughter Andrea, who's my niece. She's a nurse there. Take care of yourself, Andrea. And then her husband Tim, and their 3 little terrorists. Their description, not mine. I didn't make that up. Over to LA, Jackie and Wayne Kolar and Samantha, and then going up the coast to Pacifica, Stan and Kathy Gustafson, and then further up the coast to Sebastopol. Geez, Rich and Kathy Berger, temporary brain freeze. Okay, then locally in Petaluma, Nariman, Tim Conrad and Tom and Nancy Throw. And then in Tiburon, Dennis and Megan. I hope you had a good time over the weekend. And then Sacramento, Dave and Rosita Takach. I truly hope you guys are feeling better. And then Mickey Huff, who is the godfather of Project Censored, whose show is or was earlier on KPCA. Right now, it's about 8 o'clock on Wednesday night. I'm doing this at a rather odd time for me, but his show was 1 to 2 o'clock, KPCA LP 103.3 FM, and then it's repeated on Friday over in Berkeley at KPFA 94.1. Okay, enough of that. Okay. Okay. This is a mixture of good news and bad news throughout this. I've found a number of good news items to relay around to my listeners and watchers out there. Okay, first up, Pastor Greg Locke, Locke, of Global Vision Bible Church of Mount Joliet, Tennessee, says, his words, "You can't be a Christian and vote for a Democrat. If you're a Democrat, then get out of here, demon." Okay. He has given up his tax-exempt status. I guess you could say that that's good news, but supposedly he's given up his tax-exempt status. Okay. Bit of bad news. As I was coming on the air, or beginning to, record this episode of the Midnight Skeptic, episode 71, there was word out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, of yet another mass shooting in a hospital in Tulsa. Information is sketchy right now, but there's 3 dead, an unknown number wounded. The shooter himself, it's almost always a guy, is dead. And I don't know, that's all I know right now. But okay, good news. All right, good news, hopefully enough good news to counteract Pastor Greg Locke and his hatefulness and all other evangelical Christian hate. This Saturday, this is June 1st. This is Wednesday, June 1st. I'm recording this show both for the radio and on YouTube. This is the beginning of Pride Month. Very brief, and I'm off my notes. 1968, the Stonewall riots, and they call them riots, but it was a group of gays and drag queens that hung out in the Stonewall bar in, I think they're actually in Brooklyn. Anyway, but the police would raid them occasionally, or a lot. I don't know the frequency, but if there was nothing else going on in the local police precinct, they would just say, hey, let's go down and bust some fags. Hopefully those days are completely over in most places of the country. I'm sure that in the Bible Belt, there's still some of that. But anyway, 1970 was the first Pride Parade through the streets of Brooklyn around the Stonewall Inn, and then the first Pride Parade in San Francisco was in 1972, and it spread. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole history of it, but President Clinton declared June to be Pride, LGBTQ Pride Month, and it has remained that since then. Okay, I was going to say what kicked me off on this topic. This Saturday, June 4th, is going to be a Pride celebration in Santa Rosa, beginning at 11 o'clock in the Old Courthouse Square. I'm going to go up there just to take part because I don't think I'm going to be going to the San Francisco Pride Parade this year. It's going to be it's always the last Sunday of June. And they haven't had it for the last 2 years because of the COVID thing. But anyway, I'm not going to go down to that this year, not for any reason in particular, although I do disagree with the decision that was made by the Pride Parade Committee not to let police officers and sheriff's department march in their uniforms, which they have always done. Not always, but I mean, that goes back 15, 20 years. They have these rainbow patches on their uniforms, and there's quite a contingent of police and sheriffs that do march in the Pride Parade. But the decision was made by the Pride Committee not to let them march in their uniforms, and they tried to make a compromise by having special T-shirts printed up saying, I don't know what they're saying, but San Francisco Police Department, Pride, or something. But that doesn't cut it. I personally like to see police officers and sheriff's department in full uniform marching with their other LGBTQ friends who are in the department and the sheriff's department. And in sympathy, the fire department is not participating this year if that decision holds up. I hope they change their minds. I really do. But, that's not the reason I'm going down. There's another conflict of interest that I won't make it back to San Francisco in time to go to the parade because I'm going to be off visiting friends. Well, specifically my Sonora friends. And we're going to have Sunday breakfast together with a bunch of my friends, and I just won't make it back in time. Okay. Although before that invite to breakfast up in Sonora came about, I was kind of wrestling with myself. Should I go down there? Because I've written a couple of letters to the editor of the Chronicle supporting Pride organizers changing their mind about this police and sheriff's uniform thing, which I still hope they do. My letters did not get published, but I have in the past had a few letters published in the Chronicle. Okay. All right. Just a bit of history. The Dykes on Bikes succeeded in making their name official in 2006. And now I'm having a brain freeze on how these things get to be officially recognized. No. It's like books or writings or anything like that. Damn it. But anyway, the powers that be there said that the word dykes was unacceptable. Well, the Dykes on Bikes argued against this. They've taken that name to heart, and that's what they call themselves. So they just wanted to be in the parade or have their organization recognized as Dykes on Bikes. And Dykes on Bikes always lead off the Pride Parade. Okay. All right. Speaking of good news, we have some more. And I mentioned this guy on I think 2 shows ago, Zander Moricz. Okay, I'll spell his last name for you if you want to Google his speech. Moricz. Okay, what's his story? Okay, I talked a little bit about him a couple of shows ago. And he was, for all 4 years at his high school, he was the class president. And he's on his way to Harvard as soon as he does graduate. And the high school is Pineview High School. It's a special school. It's kind of like Lowell in San Francisco here. You have to pass you have to have good grades and pass an entry exam to get in there. It's for the accomplished students. Okay, I need a sip of, this is water, by the way, with a little squirt of lemon in it. Okay, but anyway, the class presidents give graduation speeches. Well, this was Florida. And, okay, did I write the county down? I did not. Okay, the Pineview High class president is gay and out about it, but the administrators threatened to cut off his mic if he said gay in his speech, or referred to his participation in a lawsuit against the state of Florida about their Don't Say Gay bill. And I realize people that gripe about the wording of that, I realize that that's not the official title of the law. It's parental control of education, or words to that effect. But anyway, he instead, when he got up there, and this is on YouTube, if anybody would like to see it, and I highly recommend that you do this, go to YouTube and type in, YouTube, Zander Moricz speech. Okay, his high school graduation speech is right on there. Okay, he instead said, that he was wrestling with his identity and things that he was rather ambivalent about, ashamed about. He takes off his mortarboard and says, I have curly hair. Okay, well, that's his euphemism for being gay, and he never said gay. And he talked about his difficulties in life as a curly-haired guy, and on and on and on. It's a speech it's very witty, really. And he got a standing ovation from the other kids in the class at that time. And so I highly recommend that you Google Zander Moricz, Moricz. Okay. Brad Stoddard writes, and he's a journalist, for many Christians, okay, this is a new topic. Okay, Brad Stoddard writes, for many Christians, the AR-15 is God's preferred firearm, best wielded by God-fearing Christians ready to enforce God's law on earth. That was okay. And on a last show, and I was talking a lot about testosterone and masculinization and how testosterone has come to represent maleness and lack of testosterone, femaleness. And I went into this book that I'll go into a little bit more. But I mentioned this powerlifting young girl, and I want to tell you a little bit more about her. Well, she's grown up now. Okay. Her name is Naomi Kutin, capital Kutin. And I talked about her on last week's show. I mentioned her as a 12-year-old girl. She actually started powerlifting when she was 8 because her father did that. And she just liked to be down in the basement with his weights sets and, imitated him. And then he encouraged her. And she was not muscle bound at all. There's pictures of her. And she's, at that time, 8, 9, 10 years old. She's just a skinny little girl, although the muscles that she did have were strong and worked efficiently. She was a very strong girl, and she set all sorts of records for her age group in the powerlifting world. Okay, she was not muscle-bound, just strong and learned the techniques well. But because of a brain freeze and neglecting to write about her in my notes, the story was not completed. Well, here it is. Okay, her name is Naomi Kutin. She is now 20, and she lifts on the Rutgers powerlifting team, and she holds all sorts of records for women in her various age groups as she proceeded to get older. Okay, and if you are curious about her, check out the documentary called Supergirl on PBS. She does not take supplements of any kind at all. Why? Because they're not kosher. And she is she's Jewish, as is her family. And I forget the brands of Judaism. She's not Orthodox. I think modern Orthodox. They call her something in this documentary. But anyway, she does not take supplements and certainly does not take steroids. She's filled out. There's pictures of her lifting at the age of 19 or 20 when she's with Rutgers. And she's just like a normal-looking girl. She's not muscle-bound or anything like that. Okay. Good news. The awful San Francisco Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone has been passed over for promotion to cardinal by Pope Francis. Excuse me. Cordileone is essentially a right-wing MAGA-head anti-vaxxer, fake pro-lifer, anti-LGBTQ zealot, and all-around horrible human being. I'm not usually one to give Catholics credit for anything, but 3 cheers for Pope Francis for seeing Cordileone for what he is. Cordileone helped draft Proposition 8, which back in 2004 was the a constitutional amendment here in California that would prohibit anybody other than one male and one female from getting married. And I worked on the No on 8 proposition, and it passed. However, 7 years later, not 7 years later, in 2015, the Obergefell decision came down on the U.S. Supreme Court, making same-sex marriage legal all across the country. A quickie time check here. Okay, plenty of time left. Okay, and in the 4 Catholic high schools that were within the San Francisco Archdiocese, he instituted a morals clause in hiring of teachers and school personnel, where they could not talk about their partners if they had a same-sex partner. I would imagine that probably most of them did not, but the subject of LGBTQ people could not be discussed at these 4 high schools as per Coeur d'Leone's morals clause. What a jerk. And then lately, he has come out and issued an edict denying Nancy Pelosi from taking Holy Communion because of her stance on women's right to choose. Okay? That's the latest Coeur d'Leoneism. Boy, I hope he, I don't know, somehow just goes away. We don't need people like him. And, you know, I think Catholics are just as bad as any other religion. You know, on last week's show, I did a bit on the Southern Baptist Convention and there's sex abuse scandals going on. Well, the Catholics have had their own sex abuse scandals going on for years and years and years ad nauseum. Okay. Another clarification from a brain freeze from last week's show. Androgen receptors, which respond to testosterone, are located in the cell cytoplasm, not, as I stated in the last show, embedded in the cellular membrane. They are inside the cytoplasm. Now, when they bind to a testosterone hormone molecule, and the hormone molecule testosterone has to get inside into the cytoplasm, and I guess they must go through one of these embedded channels in the cellular membrane in order to get hooked up with these androgen receptors. But anyway, once they do get hooked up with an androgen receptor, which respond to testosterone, they're located in the cell cytoplasm, and then they, the hormone molecules, the newly bound larger molecule is transported through the nuclear membrane to the DNA in the nucleus, where it regulates gene expression. The number of androgen receptors is a function of both men's and women's DNA and varies with the individual. Some men and women are insensitive to testosterone. This doesn't occur very frequently, but it does occur. which is caused by lack of androgen receptors. Now, that's a result of your individual DNA. It's, like I say, it doesn't occur very often, but often enough that there are men and women with AIS, which is androgen insensitivity syndrome. And they tend to be, or the men tend to be feminized when they have this condition. AIS falls under the broader category of differences of sexual development, or DSD. AIS affects roughly 14 out of 100,000 individuals. Women athletes who have AIS, androgen insensitivity syndrome, may have unusually high levels of testosterone, which is what's measured by the International Olympic Committee, the NCAA, and other sports authorities that try to deal with women with differences of sexual development. Caster Semenya comes to mind, the South African sprinter. Okay. These, scientific truths that have been researched ad nauseum by sports scientists facts are just lost on Republican hate mongers. And Republican hate mongering politicians are just incapable of, well, first of all, even caring about what the facts are. But even if the facts were explained to them, they would still pass these anti-trans laws in the states that Republicans control, like banning transgender female kids from participating in kids' sports from K through 12. That's kindergarten through 12th grade, meaning senior in high school. It's just terrible, and cruel and hurtful, these laws that Republicans are passing in the states they control. And their rationale is that we've got to protect the integrity of our girls' sports. Jerks, all of them. Okay, another sip. Okay. Do you all get the idea that I loathe Republicans? Well, you're right. Okay. Good news. I told you I'm going to have some good news on this program. Good news from the journal Annals of Internal Medicine. People who drink coffee, black or sweetened, have a 30% less chance of dying in the next 7 years of their lives. 1.5 to 3.5 cups of coffee of daily consumption, and a cup to these researchers is 8 ounces. Christina Wee, W-E-E, the lead author of the study at Southern Medical University of Guangzhou, said, quote, "We can't infer cause and effect from the study of their 171,000 participants." Boy, that's a large study. But she said the researchers did a very good job controlling for other factors like physical activity and overall health. Okay, good news. I drink tons of coffee. Only in the morning, though. That's the first thing I do when I get up in the morning is brew 6 cups of coffee. I mean, 6 as measured on that carafe that's part of the Mr. Coffee brew machinery. And I don't drink all 6 cups. I pour myself a cup in this cup, which is probably about 16 ounces. But I put, a small scoop of French vanilla ice cream and about a shot of Irish cream in the cup. And then I fill the rest of it up with coffee. And then I sip that through the morning. And then as it gets down, I go into the kitchen and then refill my cup to the top. And then there's a cup's worth of coffee left over that the renter that is renting my a spare bedroom upstairs likes to drink that highly diluted with hot water. I would hardly even call it coffee myself, but anyway, that's how he likes it. So anyway, every day, and then after I do that, then my cat Sasha usually is ready for her beauty appointment. She jumps up on the back of my easy chair, and then that's my signal to get the cat comb and get about 3 combs full of cat hair. And then that's the routine in the morning. So hey, I'm not going to die anytime soon. Okay. More good news. Egad, 2 in a row. Jeez. Approval of same-sex marriage is still trending upward. Axios found that even weekly churchgoers approve of same-sex marriage by 40%, according to this Gallup poll that they reported on. And it's out today, June 1st, it's out today. And then overall, 71% of Americans approve, up from 58% right after the Obergefell Supreme Court decision. In 1996, support for same-sex marriage was only 27%. There's been a sea change in attitudes. What's holding this country back from becoming really accepting of everybody and a happier place is, wait for it, Republicans and evangelicals. Okay, I'm off my notes again. I'm beginning to riff a little bit. Okay, 1996, support was 27%. This wonderful progressive trend won't stop Republican hate mongers from trying to overturn Obergefell after Roe v. Wade is overturned. Okay, the Roe v. Wade decision, as leaked from the Supreme Court, relies on the right to privacy not being enumerated in our Constitution. Well, a lot of these decisions, Obergefell being one of them, Griswold versus Connecticut being another one, rely on the concept of individual privacy. Griswold versus Connecticut is the one that allowed birth control pills. Okay, once, mark my words, as soon as Roe v. Wade is overturned, birth control pills, same-sex marriage, they're coming. Maybe even anti-miscegenation laws as enumerated by Loving versus Virginia. And that was in 1968. Boy, can you believe that at one time there were laws, mainly in the South, against a person of the white race and a person of some other race, not just blacks, but Mexicans or Asians as well. It was illegal to marry. And the people that defended anti-miscegenation laws spouted off God's will right and left and Christian scripture right and left. Okay, another topic. All right. Leah Thomas update. Okay. And I talked about her on the last show. And she was the University of Pennsylvania swimmer and transgender. And I said on my show last week that, in my opinion, she transitioned too late. Okay, she intends to keep competing in swimming events with a goal of reaching the Olympics at Paris in 2024. Okay, she was interviewed Tuesday, like yesterday, on Good Morning America, and she said she disputed the idea that she has a biological advantage over cis women. Okay, what are cis women? Women that were assigned female at birth and then have grown up their whole lives as women. In other words, that's 96 or 97% of women are all cis women. Okay. She won the 500-yard freestyle event at the NCAA championships back in March. She has graduated now from Pennsylvania and plans to attend law school. Good for her. I wish her well. The NCAA has changed its transgender eligibility guidelines to allow each sport's national governing body to determine their individual guidelines. Okay, and it's kind of kicking the can down the road and not displaying a lot of spine, we'll say. As of now, the IOC, International Olympic Committee, requires a level of testosterone to be less than 10 nanomoles per liter of blood. This must change. In my opinion, I think that's too high to be allowed, and for too short of a period, which according to them is 12 months. Okay, before a transgender woman can compete against other women, they have to, levels of testosterone have to be less than 10 moles per liter of blood for 12 months. Okay, the time frame is too short, in my opinion. As I said in the last show, there is more than just testosterone involved in athleticism. Okay, which brings me to the book that I reviewed on the last show. And it's a book that I've been reading, and I'm through with it now. It's called, let me just read my notes. Yeah. Book review, update, and correction. Last show, I talked about a book I was reading that I mistitled on the show. It is Testosterone, an Unauthorized Biography, published by Harvard University Press in 2019. And it was written by Rebecca Jordan Young, and Katrina Karkazis. Okay, Rebecca is an American feminist scientist and gender studies scholar and a professor currently at Barnard College. She's 59. She authored another book, which I intend to get. It's called Brainstorm, the the flaws in the science of sex differences. And on the last show, I went into very briefly these 6 different markers of sex. You know, hormones, chromosomes, interior sex organs, exterior sex organs, gonads, and oh geez, I'm off my notes as you can see. I can't remember the 6th one, but none of them are dimorphic, and that means a definite difference between men and women on all of these things. So what we're talking about is not a huge problem. It is a problem for intersex and transgender people not because of there's anything medically wrong with them. It's just the social discrimination that they have to suffer, mainly from Republicans and uber religious people. You know, being intersex is not a condition that needs to be repaired, or it's not a pathological condition. It's just most people who have intersex conditions just live their lives as best they can until they move to a place like Alabama or Mississippi or Texas. Okay, Rebecca Jordan Young, Barnard College. Okay, Katrina Karkazis is a professor of sexuality and women's and gender studies. She has a PhD in medical and cultural anthropology from Columbia University. After 15 years at Stanford, she became a visiting professor with the Global Health Justice Partnership at Yale. Okay. She has written another book called Fixing Sex. Okay, it's all about the medical treatment and lived experience of intersex people. Damn, I got an itchy nose. Mm-hmm. Back to the book of testosterone. The chapters each deal with some attribute of testosterone that they talk about all of the scientific investigations of the truth or not of these links between testosterone. Okay, for example, violence and testosterone. It's kind of received wisdom that high testosterone males are more violent. Power and testosterone, meaning the high-powered business executives tend to be highly testosteronized. Is that true or not? Well, it's not always true. Okay. Risk-taking in testosterone. Is that how highly successful men become successes? Is because they're not afraid to take risks, which in turn is because they have high levels of testosterone? Well, that is the received wisdom, but is it true or not? Okay. Parenting and testosterone. Men who, this is received wisdom again, not necessarily true. Received wisdom is that when men go out hunting for eligible women to spread their semen into, they're highly testosteronized. But when the woman gets pregnant and has her kid or kids, then testosterone levels tend to go down. Is that the result of a guy kind of slowing down and becoming more family-oriented, more, motherly, so to speak? Well, some people would say that, but is it true? Rebecca Jordan-Young and Katrina Karkazis go into all of these studies that have been done on these various issues, and some of them they debunk, and deservedly so. Some of these studies have been obviously p-hacked. Now, I'm not going to go into what that means. It's a statistical artifact where some scientific and medical investigators, I hate to say it, but they cheat on their studies to get their studies published. Okay, I'll devote another bit of my show on some future show to this subject of p-hacking. It's kind of interesting in a way. When I went through John F. Kennedy University, one of the courses that I needed to take to even get in there was statistics for the behavioral sciences. And we did go into p-values. And at one time, I knew how to figure this out. I don't anymore. But you, as a researcher, you don't want to be accused of p-hacking, let alone have it proved by a peer review that you actually did it. Okay, enough of that right now. Okay, unfortunately, bad news. I'm going to try not to end the show with this bad news. More mass shootings over the Memorial Day weekend, while people were still mourning the deaths of 19 fourth graders and 2 teachers at Uvalde, Texas, at Robb Elementary School, which they may not ever reopen again. I've been hearing that lately. They may just tear the building down. Okay. The Gun Violence Archive, which is a nonprofit organization that keeps track of these things, over the holiday weekend that we just went through, 9 were killed and more than 60 wounded in mass shootings. And they define mass shootings as 4 people shot or wounded in a single incident. Okay, let me get back on my notes here. The Gun Violence Archive keeps track of this. There are at least 14 different mass shootings, which they define as 4 or more people shot or killed, not including the shooter, which is almost always a guy. All right. A preliminary count found that gun violence, not just mass shootings, left at least, you ready for this, 156 people dead, and 412 injured. From 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, the beginning of the Memorial Day weekend, May 27th, to 5 a.m. Tuesday, May 31st. Ted Cruz, the most vomit-inducing senator in our country, said to a Sky News from England reporter that the U.S. is the safest country in the world, the freest, most prosperous on earth, and he had the nerve to say it was also the safest. As he was in Houston attending this heinous NRA convention. I only have about 2 more minutes to go here. I'm done with my notes. And let's just all get out and celebrate Pride Month. Whether you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community or not, you can certainly be an ally of theirs, as am I. And I am a member of a locally started organization here in Petaluma called Amor para Todos, Love for All, started by a lady named Renee Ho, and they work for LGBTQ issues here in Petaluma. And Petaluma is a relatively progressive and liberal town, which is another thing that I like about it. Okay, here's my out music. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Okay, it's exactly 58, and so I've squeaked under the cutoff point where KPCA LP 103.3 FM cuts me off. I'm still on YouTube here, so I will say goodbye until next week to all my YouTube followers out there. So, goodbye.